Welcome to the Savvy Spirit Podcast. I'm Sharon Moore, your host and creator of the Savvy Spirit Entrepreneur Program. This podcast features conscious women entrepreneurs whose businesses are built on their unique gifts and are making the world a better place. You're going to learn about their journeys, their courage, their resilience, and their truth. So enjoy the show, feel the love, and get inspired. All right, welcome back, everyone. So today we are spending time with Amy Petrarca, or if you have fun with accents, you can say Amy Petrarca. Amy there she is. All right, Amy is devoted to being of service and to helping people live their most optimal, healthy lives. She's got a practice here in San Francisco, and in that practice, she offers comprehensive and holistic healing. We're going to talk more about that, but for now, let me just tell you this. She's a registered nurse, a licensed acupuncturist, a sound healer. She offers things like functional medicine, botanicals and supplements, facial services, and probably much, much more, which we're going to learn about. This is a woman who deeply cares about people's well-being and health. So let's learn more. Amy, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sharon. I'm delighted to be here.
And let's just get the accent right. Will you just tell me, Petrarca, how do you do it?
Yeah, my last name is Petrarca, and it's much more fun through the Italian. Petrarca.
Everything's more fun with the Italians.
And this is what I tell all my patients and my friends. This is why I have been Amy P. since I was about 4 years old. So all my good friends and patients call me Amy P.
Amy P. All right. Amy P., tell me, we're meeting you at this point in your life. You are a person who cares about people's health and their healing. How did you get here? Have you always been on the path of helping others, or was this something that just kind of surprised you as you were walking down your professional life?
Well, that's a great question. Of course, I do like to reflect and tell my story. I've always known that I was going to be of service, and definitely through the realm of health and science. I think it probably first started with me begging my mother to let me babysit when I was of that age. Of course, I wanted to make, $1 an hour babysitting. And, that was also probably leading into my entrepreneurial spirit. But my mom, of course, said, you absolutely cannot babysit until you take the American Red Cross babysitting course.
Wow.
And so I did, right? I, of course, took the American Red Cross babysitting course so that I could provide CPR to a neonate. I think even at that time, I was fascinated with what it meant to be available for a healthcare emergency. Wow. There were several other events in my personal life, many injuries that I think, and then also my aunt, Margie, is an emergency nurse. She was at Akron General in Akron, Ohio for her career. And so there were definitely a lot of influences that led me down this path in first conventional medicine as a registered nurse.
I love that you said health and science.
Yes.
It's just kind of a fun, of course, health and science are related, but it's just kind of a fun, two completely different ways to approach optimal living.
Yes, and I one of the teachers that I went back to thank at my public high school was actually my AP zoology teacher, Mr. Skalski. Mm-hmm. And, he was just so fun and challenged us and treated us all as though we were all going to do something really important with science. And so, for me, of course, I loved getting straight A's, and I loved studying, and I loved science. But even the opportunity to be at a public high school and study AP zoology was, I feel really lucky for the education that I that I've had in my life.
I just on a personal level, I get so kind of tickled when people remember their teachers' names because, often educators and education, that can be such a forgotten and thankless world. And to hear people later on in life, in midlife or well into their professional career, restate the name of their teacher and the impact that they had, that just kind of warms my heart in general.
Well, I couldn't agree more. I do happen to have a, a pretty sharp memory, and I remember lots of my teachers' names. But it's also interesting to me that you recognize the importance of educators, because that's one of the most important things I learned in my nursing career, was that being the educator, being the patient educator, was one of the most crucial roles to play well. So it could be that my auscultation skills are refined, and or I can start an IV, or I can mix up a drip really quickly. But even all of those technical skills, are not going to contribute to a nurse that excels, or even a clinician that excels, if they don't take the time to be a good patient educator. And so I think that's, when I segued, I'm jumping ahead just a titch, but, as I segued out of hospital bedside nursing 5 years ago, people often ask me, are there things that you miss about being in the emergency department or being a nurse? And the truth is, as you know, I'm still a nurse, and I've taken with me that piece of being a comprehensive and thorough patient educator, and that brings me a lot of satisfaction in my work.
Well, when I hear patient educator, what I'm hearing is not just doing the actual, like you said, the act of the IV, et cetera, but connecting with that human being, the human to human, connection. And may that be via education or touch or whatever, but it's that connection that makes a difference, is what I'm hearing.
I think so too. And that's, even as I like to say I've got some really tasty problems right now. Like, that I do functional medicine, and a lot of that is consulting. And so a lot of other functional medicine clinicians are able to run their practice virtually. And, in the Bay Area, that saves an incredible amount of overhead to not have a brick and mortar office.
Yeah.
And, even though I know that it would perhaps be a better fiscal or financial decision for me to go virtual, I absolutely am not willing to take away the brick and mortar, because the truth is I am a hands-on bedside clinician, and I think so. People are not touched even by their doctors, not even or nurses or other healthcare providers, even a hand on their shoulder or something reassuring, or even that eye-to-eye connection. So what you're talking about, Sharon, is really crucial. I'm sure you may be aware of many of the clinical studies that show patients' outcomes are absolutely influenced by whether or not they feel connected to the clinician, and or whether or not they believe that that person cares for them.
Sure. And so here you are. This is your spirit. This is how you approach working with patients and being a clinician. And as you mentioned, 5 years ago, you segued. What was that about? Was it because you wanted to lead with this? Like what motivated that segue? And also, I'm still curious about what your facility is called BioHealth, right?
Yes.
And I'm curious if the name is going to reveal what it is. And maybe I'm asking the same question, but can you just tell me what is it that led you to segue into BioHealth?
Okay, well, I love telling this part of the story, so please interrupt me if I go off the rails.
I'm super engaged. I want to hear it all.
Okay, so, gosh, I think my first experiences were so riveting, and I ended up in emergency medicine, doing emergency nursing in 1995, and then moved to San Francisco in 99. So I was in my, late 20s, with a bit of experience, enough to feel moderately confident,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, really starting to look around and say, what's next? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, believe it or not, people do get bored in the emergency department at a level 1 trauma center. And that is usually more horrific than the sights.
Mm-hmm.
How could you possibly be bored? But, there's identifying not only what your greater purpose is, but what is going to challenge you, mentally, cognitively, intellectually, academically.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew I didn't want to be in hospital administration and management. Things like that could not be less appealing for me. So
So
I
were
was
you
just
in your late 20s when you became independent?
uh, what do you mean by that?
Like, what did you leave? Did you leave being a nurse in the emergency room in your late 20s and start your own practice?
Oh, no, 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 no. That wasn't until I had, my sister's actually the one that encouraged me to go take a couple classes at the acupuncture school with her
Got it.
in 2002. So I was in my early 30s. I was
Mm-hmm.
bored,
Mm-hmm.
as I said, and my sister said, hey, let's go take a couple classes together at the school, and maybe it'll be fun. And so I did. I just was taking classes with my sister, history of Chinese medicine and Chinese philosophy, and, introduction to acupuncture and meridians and Chinese herbology. And after 2 years of taking classes with my sister, which, we were having fun together studying. And of course, because I love being a student, I liked getting good grades and mastering the material. And this one day, the woman in admissions, she took my application form and she said, Amy, I wanted to ask you a question. You keep checking this box every time you register for classes saying that you're not seeking a degree.
Meanwhile, you've earned like 3 of them.
And she's like, can I ask you a question? What exactly are you doing here? And I said, well, I'm just taking some classes with my sister. She said, yeah, you've been telling me that for a little over 2 years. She said, have you ever thought about being an acupuncturist?
Wow.
And I said, never. And she said, well, you might want to think about it because you're going to graduate.
Wow.
Yep.
You were just
That
doing it
is
for purely curiosity. As you're in the classes, were you imagining doing this work with patients?
absolutely not. And this is, I think, one of the most interesting parts of the journey was because, let me tell you, when you say to people, I am the charge nurse at the trauma center, and I work at San Francisco General, and I'm a nurse, you have a feeling of being a community, soft sung hero,
Yeah.
right? Like, who doesn't like that?
Yeah.
And so there's, really this was the crucial part for me, was dismantling this ego, right? Like, I had to end up being where I am now, I had to absolutely dismantle my ego as who am I?
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought, oh my gosh, could I be an acupuncturist? I was like, I have no idea. And then that was like maybe the first time I said to myself, I said, you know what? I have to be willing to fail. And that, I think, is also a crucial part of my success, was being willing to fail.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely being willing to fail in front of everyone and land on my face.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I graduated in 2006. I was still working as an emergency nurse. And the thing I didn't expect was, a bunch of my colleagues at the hospital saying, hey, when can we come in and get acupuncture?
Wow.
And it just hadn't occurred to me. I was like, oh yeah, like, oh, of course, like, I'm going to make this transition. So in 2006, when I graduated, I decided to take a year off so that I could actually find out what I wanted to bring into this new practice of biohealth.
Mhm.
And that was one of the best decisions I ever made, to take a year off and really explore what I wanted to offer. And
Amen.
so, I received a lot of support, as you might imagine, from my family. And so my dad and his wife, they live in Fort Myers, Florida, and we were down there for a visit and doing this kind of like a brainstorming session with creativity and coming together with concepts and what my name was going to be and my logo and things like that. And so you know, uh, the name biohealth, of course, it sounds like bio, like life, right? Like biology.
Right.
And that was appealing to me. Um, and the spelling, BIAO, it actually stands for beauty in and out.
Wow. I actually went ahead and Googled BIAO.
Yes.
And I didn't have
So,
beauty in and out. I did
well,
not find it.
it's not something that I publish. It's just one of these, kind of under the radar facts about my company name. And then, the other, let me tell you, I would never do it again. Now that it's been 11 years almost, I would never, quote unquote, misspell my company name on purpose. It's just really, it leads to lots of, intercepted email and things like that. However, at the time, I thought it was very creative. um, there's also this concept that we study in Chinese medicine that's called the root and the branch, or the bun and the biao. And so the Mandarin pronunciation could be biao. And so, there's a couple of different biaos. Of course, it depends on the intonation. And I am not even close to being fluent in Mandarin. However, this the branch of treatment is, are you going to focus on the symptoms or the root of the problem? And so, sometimes the symptoms is the right approach, and sometimes the root is the right approach, and sometimes it's a combination. And so, I ended up with my logo, which is this abstract apple core with the Chinese symbol zhong in the middle, which means center. And so for me, this logo represents being centered at the core of health and wellness. And so that was something that was also really meaningful for me with this creativity.
And I just love the double meaning of that. I love beauty in and out. And I love the concept of, are we going to go to the core or are we going to go to the symptoms? And sometimes both are necessary. I love the double meaning of that. I really do. And honestly, when I hear that you took a year off to explore, I mean, this is what the universe likes, because that gives space for communication and connection, and for you to get the clarity, and for you to get the messages. And it sounds like that's exactly what happened.
Yes, in fact, I know we haven't talked a lot about the universe, but I do believe the universe has my back. And the universe did allow for me to find the perfect place to hang my shingle. And I'll tell you, even my first day was September 5th of 2007. It was a Wednesday. And I still remember, the experiences on that first day. And, after that first week of being an acupuncturist, I just, my jaw was on the floor, and I was like, God, if I knew it was going to be this good, I don't know that I would have taken a year off. This is great.
Wow.
So it just felt so right. And I was so inspired to learn this new identity and learn this new path of service.
Unbelievable. You're like, I'm like, blah, blah, blah. Your just conviction is so contagious. I mean, I can feel it. And you've now been doing it for what, 10 years? And you sound like you've just discovered it yesterday. I mean,
I'm telling you, it's true. I am extremely enthusiastic, and I'm one of these people that just has a lot of energy. And, some of the best advice I received from one of my first patients who, He said, Amy, he said, you know what, when you meet new patients for the first time, he said, you have to tell them, hey, you know what, I'm really excited about helping you. I'm excited about Chinese medicine. I'm excited about sharing this with you. And feel free to interrupt me. He said, make sure you tell them that, because some people are so intimidated that they are not going to want to interrupt you.
Oh, if I was, in the seat of a patient with a clinician who's that excited about what they're about to do, wow. How often do we get that when somebody's that convicted and excited about the healing modality they're about to give you? That's contagious and comforting in every way.
Well, thank you. It does feel good. It's like trying a garment on that was custom made for you.
Yeah.
And then it just fits, and it fits and feels so good that you just, you're like, oh, okay. It really does. Of course, because of the work that I do and because I'm a human in the United States, I talk to a lot of people who are really miserable in their work and miserable in their jobs. And, I have to tell you, this is one thing in my life that is not broken.
Yeah, amen. And this is a great segue because I want to switch into that portion of it, that it's your business, it's your job, right? So yes, in every which way, you've put on that garment that was custom made for you. You are walking the path that you are destined to walk, and the universe has your back. Now you're a business owner. How have you navigated that? What was that like? Suddenly being responsible for things like accounting and marketing and database management and communication and all that kind of, business skills. How did you navigate that part?
Well, I'll tell you, nobody, so far as I know, nobody goes into acupuncture or Chinese medicine with the thought of, I'm going to make a lot of money. I've never met that person. And as you know, I kind of fell into it anyway. So,
Yeah.
I straddled both worlds a little longer than I should have, 6 years. I was doing both. I was seeing patients as, in my private practice. And then I was continuing to work these shifts at the trauma center. And so,
Wow.
I was, this was one of my hardest lessons to learn, because what I was doing, I didn't realize this, but, I was subsidizing my business, right? So if I wanted to buy more needles or more inventory or pay rent and I didn't have that revenue coming in, I would pick up an extra shift at the hospital, right? So I wasn't savvy as a businesswoman initially. I hadn't thought about it at all. And so, it's embarrassing but true. And so a lot of what happened with being a small business owner for me, it was baptism by fire.
Yeah.
And I had some really difficult decisions to make, and the hardest one was quitting my job at the hospital. And so it felt like such a huge risk, because that was a for sure thing, right? I could pick up a shift anytime I want. And, but there came a time when I had to absolutely take my foot off of that dock, and that safety net. And I had to say, you know what, I've got to sink or swim. Like, I've got to either do this or not do this, because the time that I was spending at the hospital was taking time away from me running my business and admin and patient care. And I wasn't willing to do it anymore. So how
did you get there? How did you have that moment of clarity? Like, okay, this is the time, I'm jumping.
That happened. I was on a retreat at Tassajara in the Ventana Wilderness. It's probably my favorite place on earth. And my teacher, Li Ping, does a swimming dragon Tai Chi and Qigong retreat there every year in May. And so I was on retreat, and it just came to me that I needed to create the space. And so I was willing then to resigned my benefited position at the hospital. And, I mean, of course, everyone, my friends that are nurses at the hospital had told me, they're like, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. And we always talk about this work as, this Department of Public Health job as the golden handcuffs.
Yeah.
And that's indeed what it was. So I finally decided I'm going to do this. And, one of the tools that has helped me the most, and I would advise any of your listeners that are interested in really exploring their relationships with money, to look into Luna Jaffe, or it could be Jaffe. She's a financial consultant up in Portland, Oregon, and she launched a book called Wild Money. And Wild Money is absolutely targeted to the female entrepreneur looking to evaluate and explore her relationship with finances. And it is absolutely some of the most important work I ever did was with Wild Money. Because if you can't get comfortable talking about money, you can't, I couldn't make this work.
Right.
Work.
And this is what you are destined to do. And how lucky for us that you figured out a way to make it work. Right?
Right. Like I totally realized at some point, if I fail as a businesswoman, then I fail my patients.
Yeah.
And, that feels like heavy stakes for me because they really want me to be there. Mm-hmm. They want me to be there when they want to make an appointment, and I want to be there for them. And I'll tell you, the amount of work that it takes to keep my company up and running is, it's remarkable. And, I'll tell you, especially with, the holidays just passed, and I could not believe how many cards and gifts I received from patients this year, and they're just the gratitude. Yeah. I mean, that is something that it feels so good. It makes it feel like all of the work with QuickBooks and bookkeeping and inventory and, all of that, it makes all of it worth it when people really feel the benefit of my work.
Speaking of those people and the happy patients, how does one become your patient? Do you have a wait list? Is it easy to get on your calendar? Tell us.
Okay. Thanks for asking that question, Sharon. So, so I'll tell you, I am lucky enough to be word of mouth. And that's my primary marketing is people just like my clients, just my patients, they have big mouths and they talk to their friends and neighbors and colleagues and family members and say, go see Amy P.
Yeah.
So I don't do, marketing through the internet. In fact, I'm always curious, how did you find me? I am still taking new patients. There is still room in my practice. I do work many of the 7 days a week, not all 7 days of every week, as I like to say. I'm currently in a pattern of rotating days off, but that might be changing. Mm-hmm. But typically, patients just either email me. Inquiring new patients can email me, amy@biohealth.com, BIAO health.com.
Beauty in and out.
There you go. Or they can call me. But I currently don't have a way to do online scheduling. That will probably come to be for established patients. However, I really want to have an in-depth conversation with any inquiring potential new patient to make sure that we're a good fit.
Yeah. And, our interview is coming to an end, but I want to just reflect back to you. This is one of the things that to me stands out about you. You've got, you could automate and have people just show up on your calendar, but there is an integrity. You mentioned it earlier, patient education. There is a drive that you have in truly connecting with that other human being and alignment seems to be important to you. So yeah, that first call, you're not going to go automated. You're going to actually have a long, deep, connected talk with them to see that this is the right place. And I think that makes you stand out from the crowd. I really do.
Well, I agree. And I think the other reason that my clients choose me is because I have this triunal approach of really integrating my couple decades of experience in conventional or Western medicine and the traditional Chinese medicine approach, five-element theory, yin-yang theory, meridian theory. And then when I found functional medicine in 2010, that changed everything, because now I was going to be able to offer a partnership with my clients that was preventative and predictive with a holistic view that is science-based.
Keyword, partner. That is not what we often feel in the traditional, hospital doctor rooms. So thank you.
You're so welcome.
Amy P., it has been such a treat to have you. Thank you so much for being here. I'd like to just offer, if you already mentioned a little nugget that I plan on exploring, the wild money. But, I always like to offer just any words of wisdom or words of encouragement that you would like to share with our listeners.
Yes. Whether you are a prospective patient or just on your own journey of health and wellness, or whether or not you are an entrepreneur, trust your intuition. I can't tell you how many times having a polished or sharpened intuition has served me well.
Wow. Beautiful. I concur, for what it's worth. Amy, thank you so much for being here. It has been such a treat. You have such a little bubbly and excited energy about this work that you're doing, and you can feel it. And I'm feeling it through Skype. I'm not even in the same room as her, and I feel it, people.
Thank you so much, Sharon. It's an honor to be part of your interview and podcast, and I am so excited for the work that you're doing. So it's absolutely a treat, and may the universe continue to provide a space for all of us to share our unique skills.
Oh, beautifully said. All right. So to everybody, we'll close with that. We'll sign off with that. And as you know, it is my honor to bring people like Amy P. to the light so that we go from your ears to your heart and ultimately into action that makes the world a better place. With that, we'll sign off. Good night, and we will see you soon. Thanks, everyone, for listening. I hope you feel inspired and connected and alive. And hey, if you enjoyed the show today, leave us a review. And if you want more, you can also find us online at thesavvyspirit.com or on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Okay, my friends, it is time to say goodbye. I wish you a good night, a good morning, a good day, wherever you are on this earth. I wish you well, and I'll see you next week.